On this episode of Diverse Talking Heads, we're going to talk about corporate welfare. Corporate welfare is often used to describe a government's bestowal of money grants, tax breaks, or some other favorable treatments for profit making companies, especially large corporations. You're not going to want to miss this only on Diverse Talking Heads. All right, we are ready to jump right into this. This is Diverse Talking Heads. I'm your host, Calvin Gibbs. And yes, we have a distinguished panel with us again today. I'm just going to call their names off. We have Charlie Ramsey.
Thank you.
We have Amy Rath.
Hello, thank you.
We have Dan Mendelovitz. And
Hello,
we
thank
have
you.
and we have Karen Tension. And yes, we also have Vincent Damon, who is joining us as we speak. I can see him coming down the hallway right now into the studio. There he is. There he is.
Marching in, yep.
Vincent, you're right on time. Welcome.
He half arrived.
I am in motion, so this is
always.
my first time trying to do this in motion, and yeah, I'm glad to be here. How is everybody?
All right,
Well,
we are
welcome,
good.
Vince.
Good.
So tonight, as we said, we're talking about corporate welfare. There's all types of tax breaks. There's all types of money grants. There's favors going on. There's money changing hands probably under the table in this thing called corporate welfare. So why do you think, I'm going to ask the first question to go to Dan. Dan, why do you think that we have this situation where corporations, profit-making corporations, get such great tax breaks?
Well, there's a couple reasons. One is simply unintentional consequences. They're trying to fix something and it doesn't always work the way they are thinking about it. The other is power. These are the folks who can lobby. You know, if you look at, for instance, agricultural subsidies, most of it, like over 90% of it, goes to corporate farms, which a lot of times are even owned by overseas concerns. You take, for instance, Smithfield, which is the biggest pork producer in the world. It's now a Chinese company. American taxpayers subsidize that company. So if you're thinking about, we think about farming, we think about it as a family farm. But family farms don't qualify for most of this money. There's other situations where they're trying to fix blighted areas, but everybody has a different definition of what that is. And it's really a place where it's where the money is. And where the money is attracts people who know how to get the money. And those are big names and big concerns. And I think that that's the system that we have. And a politician likes announcing that there's jobs coming up front, that isn't necessarily there when it's actually happening.
Okay, but we give to these large corporations who's already making a lot of profits, and we give them a tax cut, doesn't that affect the economy? Are they not paying their fair share?
Actually, they're not. You have
Mm.
companies like Amazon who paid zero taxes last year, even though
Right.
they use the roads, they
Yeah.
use the airports, all of the infrastructure. And that is really where we have to make decisions as a society if that's what we want to have. Also, when you set up these systems and you don't have them paying property tax, most education, especially here in Illinois, is funded by those funds that come from property tax. It was estimated as of about 2018 that the Chicago school system has lost $2.5 billion in tax revenue due to tax increment financing districts.
Wow. Wow.
And that shows you the effect on our kids and on education when you're doing these kind of deals.
Now, another type of corporate welfare happens when governments make non-traditional, or let's just call them extraordinary investments. For example, sports stadiums. They're financed and sponsored through local governments, right? And then these special districts or these public corporations receive all these tax receipts from hotels, car rentals, taxes, as well as local property tax money. So we're feeding into a system, it seems, where the rich are getting richer. And of course, anybody that owns any kind of sports team, they're well off, okay? They're well, we all will agree on that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Mhm.
So we have this system where you're rich, and we're going to make you even richer by giving you tax breaks. In some cases, we're going to give you additional money, which you're not paying taxes on, and it's all good. Anybody that want to answer this, how did we get here?
I mean, hold it. Somebody else go.
Vince has something to say.
This, so, and not to be long-winded, as I be long-winded, right? I just listened to Animal Farm, and I see so much of this in this. It's because our politicians were bought, because we incentivize and monetize our politics. After we did that, the corporations was the most united body to step in and guide things to the way they wanted. One of the first spots where this happened was, if you go back to, I think it was around, I don't want to throw out numbers because I don't know. But what I will say is, corporations used to have a dissolve date. Corporations used to have a time where a corporation was enacted to do a certain thing, a certain project, whether it was governmental or state or a group of people who wanted to come together and do something, and then they were disbanded. Now, corporations have the laws and rights of people. So when you look at the law, and when you look at, okay, if you have the right of a person, now you are an organized monopoly of people aiming for a central goal. So you're more than just a regular person. So if you want to move Congress to do things that way you want them to do them, you have the finances and you have the organization to do it. And you have the autonomy as a person to be able to do it. That was our first mistake. So we say, how do we get here? That was our first mistake. We started taking away charters for corporations. Second mistake, we started letting them give as much money to our political system as they wanted. When we did that, we gave them a license to buy it all. No man, no woman, no one can stand to the force or the buying power of an Amazon, especially now that it's considered a person. They have the same rights, the same libelous, the same rules of any of us, but if they go down, they don't exist. So you got to realize that this deterioration is what I'll call it, started long ago, and it started out of money in our politics. It started out of greed, which is a human thing. Let's not condemn greed too much because we all have a bit of it. But it started when that was left unchecked.
Mhm.
And that's
Okay.
how we got here.
Okay,
Sorry, didn't mean to be long-winded.
that's okay. I'm going to stop you right there because you talked about the government, and we know that technology companies. This I know firsthand. They have benefited from government contracts or government investments. Let's say, especially if they deal with the fiber optics or cable installations, things like that, they get great money from the government. Um, President Biden just signed his $1.3 trillion infrastructure bill, and some of that is going to um, make sure that Wi-Fi can reach the most remote parts of the country,
Absolutely. It has a lot of great pieces to it.
as they
Mhm.
say, as they say. However, if I have a smaller technology company, maybe it's a startup that I'm trying to get going after the pandemic, will I be able to get any of this government money? Or is it all going to go to the big boys, the big established boys? And we had the same issue last year during the pandemic when money was given to states and never reached the businesses that needed it. All the big boys were standing in line and got their applications in before anybody else. And there's a lot of companies that businesses that had to go under because they didn't get their money. Anybody want to address that?
Well, I would say that's because corporations know the game better. You know, they have bigger resources, lawyers, experts, whatever, researchers, and they know the game better.
Yeah, but
So they're out ahead of it. They know what's happening in the government, where there's opportunity within the government, you know, as laws and rules change, and they do, or opportunity comes up. They just know that, you know.
Yeah, but I mean, when we talk about, and Charlie, I totally agree with what you're saying. I'm not disagreeing. But when it comes down to fairness and people talking about the economy and wanting to help the small businesses, they even have a couple of special days for small businesses or whatever. You know, to me, it's all a farce. It's all a farce. When you had the opportunity and the power to help these companies, these businesses, and you didn't do it. You got in bed with the big boys.
Absolutely.
And when you get in bed with the big boys, you know what you get that's big as well.
Well, part of it is part of it is they are there with their lobbyists. They're there when they write the rules. Okay. You know, I used to joke that perhaps Congress should be wearing clothing that has patches on it like NASCAR, and so we know who sponsored them.
It's brilliant.
But they're there when the rules are written, and they're there when the regulations are written. And they know, and they have people who watch this for them. And so, like Charles said, they jump in front of the line. You know, the way the money was doled out was they sent it through banks. So if you had a relationship with your bank, you could get first in line. If you were a small, restaurant and didn't have a long-term relationship with a big bank, you were in the back of the line. And who are they going to serve? Like any business, they're going to serve their best customers first. And so they took their best customers, and you can't expect corporations not to be greedy. That's what they do. That's capitalism. We have to actually decide on the other side whether we're going to give it to them in the first place. And that's where the roles really, I believe, have to change.
Can I make sorry.
No, go ahead, Amy.
I wanted to just make it's sort of a tangential comment, but we've mentioned a couple of times, like treating corporations as people, viewing them as people. And so I used to work in outplacement. So that's where if an organization is downsizing or they're letting a part of their workforce go for whatever reason, they could partner with a firm like the one that I worked with, where we would basically take the people who were being, it's called a RIF, a reduction in workforce. So
Mhm.
we'd go